There is a skyscraper in Manhattan that is literally fighting gravity every single day. And for a brief terrifying moment last year, gravity started winning. Nobody talks about what actually happened. And when you hear the full story, you are going to understand why. New York City has over 1 million buildings. 7,000 of them are classified as skyscrapers. And of those 7,000, engineers have quietly flagged a small number as buildings that should not technically still be standing. Not because of earthquakes. Not because of poor construction. Because of something far more unsettling that almost nobody outside the engineering world knows about. One of those buildings is in Midtown Manhattan. You have probably walked past it. You might even have looked up at it and thought it looked impressive. That is the terrifying part. Here is what most people get completely wrong about skyscrapers. They think tall buildings are built to resist the wind. They are not. The best skyscrapers in the world are built to sway with it. A rigid building in a high wind does not stand firm. It snaps. So engineers design these structures to move, sometimes several feet in either direction, absorbing the energy of the storm rather than fighting it. That is not a flaw. That is genius. But what happens when a building starts moving in a way that was never planned? The Citigroup Center Tower, now called 601 Lexington Avenue, opened in 1977. It was considered one of the most architecturally daring buildings ever constructed. It stands on 4 massive stilts, placed not at the corners of the building like every other skyscraper, but at the center of each side. The result is a building that appears to float above street level. It looked revolutionary. It was celebrated around the world. And it was structurally compromised in a way that could have killed tens of thousands of people. The problem was discovered not by a government inspection, not by a routine safety audit, but by a single architecture student named Diane Hartley. She was working on a thesis. She was running calculations on the building as a case study. And then she found something that made no sense. So she ran the numbers again. Same result. She contacted the lead engineer, a man named William Le Mesurier. And what happened next is one of the most quietly buried stories in the history of New York City. Le Mesurier checked her work. And he confirmed it. Certain diagonal wind loads, wind coming at the corners of the building at a 45-degree angle, could create a resonance effect that the structure was not designed to handle. The bolted joints that held the building's skeleton together, joints that had been changed from welded to bolted during construction to save money, could fail under those conditions. And if they failed, the building would not bend. It would collapse. Not slowly. Catastrophically. The math showed that a storm powerful enough to trigger that failure occurred statistically once every 16 years in New York City. The building had been open for 2 years. Now here is the part that should stop you cold. Le Mesurier did not cover it up. He did not lawyer up. He did not go silent. He walked into Citigroup's offices and told them everything. He then contacted the city. He coordinated a secret nighttime repair operation, welding steel plates over every one of the compromised joints, working through the night so that office workers arriving in the morning would notice nothing unusual. The operation took months. Evacuation plans were quietly drafted for a 10-block radius. The Red Cross was placed on standby. And New Yorkers went about their lives completely unaware that the building above them was being quietly saved. It was kept out of the press. A news blackout, agreed upon by the city, the engineers, and Citigroup. The New Yorker broke the story 11 years later, in 1995. By then the repairs were complete, the building was safe, and most people who read the article still had no idea how close it had actually been. Think about that for a moment. You could be standing in a city right now, in a building right now, with a structural compromise that has not yet been found. Not because engineers are careless, but because the systems that are supposed to catch these things depend entirely on someone asking the right question at the right time. Diane Hartley was a student. She was not a licensed engineer. She was running numbers for a class project. And she may have saved 100,000 lives because she did not stop when the math looked wrong. That is the real story of the Manhattan skyscraper that nearly fell. Not a disaster. A near miss that most of the world never heard about. Preserved by the decision of one engineer who chose honesty over self-protection and a student who chose curiosity over assumption. There are over 40,000 skyscrapers currently standing in the world. The engineering behind them is extraordinary. The humans behind the engineering are doing their best. And occasionally, because they are human, something gets missed. The Citigroup Center is now one of the most studied case studies in structural engineering ethics in the world. Le Mesurier did not lose his career. He was praised by his peers for how he handled it. His reputation became a lesson, not in failure, but in what integrity actually looks like under pressure. Most people walk through Manhattan and see ambition in steel and glass. Now you know that sometimes what you are walking past is a problem that was solved quietly, at midnight, by people who chose to do the right thing when no one was watching. And that is a different kind of impressive altogether.